You get a promotion, you finish a difficult project, and while everyone celebrates, a cold voice whispers in the back of your mind, "It's a sham." They don't know the truth. You're a fraud, and at any moment, they're going to find out. This voice has a name, Impostor Syndrome. And according to deep psychology, it is not a sign of your weakness, but of your hidden strength, terrified of its own light. You are not alone in this theater of shadows. Millions of people, especially the most competent, the most dedicated, those who strive the most, share this agonizing secret. They live on a stage, playing the part of someone successful, while in the backstage of their minds, the panic of being unmasked is a constant. This feeling is not a mere inferiority complex, it is a complex psychological phenomenon, a cognitive dissonance between your external reality of success and your internal perception of yourself as inadequate. It is the persistent belief that you have deceived everyone around you, that your achievements are the result of luck, chance, or a cosmic misunderstanding. And the cruelest paradox of all is that the more success you achieve, the louder the imposter's voice screams. Each new accomplishment is not proof of your competence, but rather another layer to your fraud, increasing the risk and fear of the eventual catastrophic revelation. Carl Jung would say that this voice is not an enemy to be fought, but a messenger from your shadow. It is the manifestation of all the parts of yourself that you have rejected and buried. Your vulnerability, your imperfections, your fear of not being worthy of love or respect. The imposter is the guardian of these exiled parts. It sabotages your joy and your success because your light threatens to expose the darkness it has sworn to protect. It prefers to keep you small and safe in the familiar shadow rather than risk exposure in the blinding light of your true potential. But where does this voice come from? Why does a part of us seem to actively work against our own success? To understand the saboteur, we must descend into the cellar of our psyche, to the place where it was born and where its chains were first forged. This voice does not arise from nothing. It is a construction, a psychological scar left by past experiences. Often, the seed of imposter syndrome is planted in one of two seemingly opposite soils, that of excessive praise or that of relentless criticism. Consider the child who is constantly praised for their talent, their intelligence, their results. You're a genius. You're the best. They learn a dangerous and subtle lesson. Their value does not lie in who they are, but in what they produce. Love and acceptance become conditional on their performance. Every new task, every new challenge is not an opportunity to grow, but a high-stakes test to revalidate their right to be loved. Past successes do not accumulate to build a foundation of confidence. Instead, they just raise the bar, making the next potential failure even more frightening. The fear is not of failing the task. It is the fear that failure will reveal the truth, that they were never a genius, that it was all a mistake, and that the conditional love they received will be suddenly withdrawn. The other fertile ground is that of constant criticism. The child who grows up under the gaze of a parent, teacher, or older sibling who is never satisfied. Every mistake is amplified. Every imperfection is pointed out. To survive in this environment, the child develops a defense mechanism. They become their own fiercest critic, anticipating the external attack by attacking themselves first internally. This inner critical voice becomes a constant companion. Over time, it merges with the person's identity. Even when the external critic is no longer present, the voice remains, now as the narrator of their life, pointing out every flaw, questioning every success. It is a ghost that haunts every achievement. To maintain its power, the imposter's voice develops a brilliant and perverse cognitive strategy. It discounts every success and internalizes every failure. When something goes right, the voice whispers, "It was luck. The task was easy." They're just being nice. They didn't see my mistakes. Success is always attributed to external factors, but when something goes wrong, even a small slip-up, the voice shouts triumphantly, "See, I knew it. Here's the proof. I am a fraud. I am not good enough." Failure is always seen as definitive proof of your fundamental inadequacy. This is how the prison is maintained. It is a circular, self-reinforcing logic. So the voice is installed, forged in the fire of conditional praise or constant criticism. It lives in your mind, rewriting your reality. But how does it act? What are the subtle strategies, the daily sabotages it uses to keep you small, to prevent you from claiming your own success? Once installed, forged in the fire of conditional praise or constant criticism, the imposter's voice does not remain passive. It becomes an active general, commanding an army of self-sabotaging behaviors. It acts through you, using subtle daily strategies to keep you small, to prevent you from claiming your own success. These strategies are the horsemen of your personal apocalypse, 4 main patterns of behavior that the imposter uses to maintain control. The first and most common is the perfectionist. For the perfectionist, nothing is ever good enough. They set standards so absurdly high that they are impossible to achieve. The secret goal of perfectionism is not excellence, it is paralysis. The fear of turning in work that isn't flawless is so great that it prevents them from ever starting. Procrastination becomes their main weapon. I don't know enough yet. I need to do more research. It's not ready. If they do eventually start, they obsess over insignificant details, missing deadlines and draining their energy, all to avoid the moment of final judgment. Perfectionism is the fear of failure disguised as a quest for quality. The second horseman is the Superman or Superwoman. This is the workaholic. Convinced they are a fraud, they try to compensate for this perceived flaw by working harder for longer than anyone else. They measure their worth by the hours they put in, not the results they achieve. They take on every project, say yes to every request, sacrificing their health, relationships, and well-being on the altar of productivity. They are constantly running from the imposter's voice, trying to outrun it with sheer volume of effort, hoping that if they are busy enough, no one, not even themselves, will have time to notice they are a sham. The third horseman is the natural genius. For this person, competence is measured by ease and speed. If they cannot master a new skill almost instantly, they see it as proof of their inadequacy. Effort is not a sign of dedication, but of stupidity. Struggle is not a noble part of the learning process, but a humiliation. As a result, they avoid any challenge that doesn't come naturally to them. They stay within the small circle of things they are already brilliant at, afraid to venture into territories where they might look like a beginner, severely limiting their own growth. Finally, there is the fourth horseman, the soloist. The soloist believes that asking for help is the ultimate sign of weakness. To ask for help, for them, is to publicly admit their fraudulence. They would rather struggle alone for weeks with a problem that could be solved in minutes with a simple question. They refuse collaborations, reject offers of assistance, and isolate themselves in their tower of pride. They would rather risk total failure in silence than achieve success with the help of others. The perfectionist, the Superman, the natural genius, the soloist. Perhaps you recognized one of them. Perhaps, to your horror, you recognized all 4 taking turns in commanding your life. Recognizing the pattern is the first step. But how do you dismantle an army that lives within your own walls? How do you fight a civil war in the soul?
To fight a civil war in the soul does not require more force, but more intelligence. You cannot defeat this internal army with a frontal assault, for it uses your own energy against you. Victory comes from strategy, from counterinsurgency, from rewriting the rules of engagement. The first and most fundamental rule of engagement is this: separate feelings from facts. The imposter's voice, your inner critic, is a master of disguising emotions as irrefutable facts. The feeling of, "I am a fraud," feels like the truth. The anxiety before a presentation feels like proof of your incompetence. Your first act of rebellion is to learn to label these internal events. When the voice says, "You are going to fail," you must consciously tell yourself, "I am having the thought that I will fail." This is a symptom of impostor syndrome, not an accurate report of reality. This small change in language creates a crucial distance. You cease to be the prisoner of the emotion and become the observer of it. With this distance, you can now implement the counter strategies for each of the horsemen. To defeat the perfectionist, you must embrace the heresy of good enough. Your goal ceases to be creating the perfect masterpiece and becomes simply finishing the job. You send the email with a minor typo. You turn in the report that is 90% complete. You publish the video that is not perfectly edited. Every act of imperfect completion is a stake through the heart of the perfectionist, for it thrives in the paralysis of the quest for perfection, not in the reality of execution. To defeat the Superman, you need to practice the courage to be average. This means setting and defending your boundaries, leaving the office on time even if the work isn't finished, saying no to a new project when your plate is already full, refusing to measure your worth by your level of exhaustion. Your mind will scream that you are being lazy, irresponsible, but what you are really doing is declaring that your well-being is more important than external validation. And finally, to defeat the natural genius and the soloist, you must wield the weapon they fear most: vulnerability. For the genius, it is the courage to say the phrase, "I don't know, can you teach me?" It is accepting that effort is a sign of learning, not of stupidity. For the soloist, it is the strength to say, "I can't do this alone, I need help." Every time you ask for help, you destroy the illusion that you need to be a self-sufficient island. You prove to the imposter that collaboration is a strength, not a weakness. These are the counter strategies, simple to understand, but incredibly difficult to execute. Because by implementing them, you will declare open war on your inner imposter, and it will not go down without a fight. What is its reaction when you start to win? What is its last and most desperate trick?
By implementing these counter strategies, you are openly declaring a civil war in your psyche. And your inner imposter, the old regime, will not abdicate power peacefully. When it realizes that its old tactics, perfectionism, overworking, isolation, can no longer control you, it does not give up. It launches its last and most desperate attack. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as an extinction burst. When a behavior that used to generate a reward stops working, the brain, in a final attempt to get the old result, performs that behavior with much greater intensity before finally giving up. Your imposter will do the same. It will launch its most powerful offensive. Its final trick is the massive amplification of fear. The whispers of doubt become roars of terror. It will project into your mind the most vivid and detailed movies of your catastrophe. You won't just think, "What if I fail?" You will feel in every cell of your body the humiliation of failure. You will visualize in detail the mocking faces of your colleagues, the disappointment of your family, the loss of your livelihood. It will turn a possibility into a destiny, an anxiety into a certainty. It is a shock and awe campaign designed to terrify you into retreating to the safety of your old cell. If terror doesn't work, it will try seduction. It will whisper with a soft, nostalgic voice, reminding you of how simple life was before. Remember how safe it was when you didn't have to worry about these things? Without this pressure, without this risk, we can go back there. It's easy. Just stop trying. It will romanticize your old prison, painting the bars of the cell as if they were pillars of a comfortable palace. It will try to convince you that the peace of stagnation is preferable to the anxiety of growth. This phase of the battle is not about strategy. It is about endurance. There is no new argument to win, no new technique to apply. Your only task is to withstand the storm. It is to feel the amplified terror and not retreat. It is to hear the siren song of your old comfort zone and not change course. It is a test of pure will, of anchoring yourself in the decision you have made and holding fast. And the most important thing to know about this phase is that the intensity of the imposter's attack is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. On the contrary, it is the definitive proof that you are doing everything right. It is the sign that you are so close to freedom that the old guard is fighting for its very survival. When you withstand this final storm, when you refuse to return to the cell, even when it looks like a palace, something happens. The imposter's roar becomes a whimper, and then a silence. Not an empty silence, but a silence full of potential. What do you do with this newfound peace? How do you begin to live as the true ruler of your inner kingdom?
When the storm of the extinction burst passes, what remains is not euphoria, but a deep and unfamiliar peace. It is the silence that settles over the battlefield after the war has ended. The imposter's roar, which has been the soundtrack of your life, fades to a distant whisper. And for the first time, you can hear your own thoughts without the filter of fear and self-criticism. Living as the ruler of your inner kingdom begins with getting used to this new stillness. Your energy, once consumed in managing the internal conflict, in fighting your own ghosts, is suddenly freed. And with this new reserve of power, your relationship with the world and with yourself changes fundamentally. Your definition of success is the first to be transformed. Success is no longer a desperate search for external validation, for awards, titles, and praise that might temporarily silence the imposter's voice. Success becomes an exercise in internal alignment. The new success is the satisfaction of a day lived in coherence with your values. It is the ability to finish a project and feel pride in the effort, regardless of the outcome. It is the peace of knowing that your actions are an authentic expression of who you are, not a performance for an invisible audience. With this comes the ability to finally own your own competence. The old habit of discounting your achievements, of attributing your success to luck, loses its power. You learn to accept a compliment with a simple and genuine thank you, without the impulse to self-deprecate. You begin to look at your own creations, at your own work, and to recognize its value, not with arrogance, but with a calm and objective honesty. You become capable of being your own ally, instead of your own executioner. And perhaps the most profound and paradoxical change of all is the development of a new and liberating relationship with failure. The imposter, at its core, is driven by a mortal fear of failing, as each failure is proof of its fraud. When its power over you diminishes, your fear of failure diminishes with it. Failure ceases to be a verdict on your identity and becomes simply what it should have always been: feedback, a data point, a lesson. And with this new freedom to fail comes an unprecedented freedom to experiment, to take risks, to explore, to be a beginner again. When you govern your inner kingdom with this new sovereignty, an inevitable change begins to happen in your outer kingdom. The world around you, which once seemed like a courtroom, begins to reflect your new inner peace. How does this newfound authenticity redesign your relationships, your career, and your future?
When your inner kingdom finds peace, your outer kingdom has no choice but to reflect it. Your new authenticity becomes a gravitational force, silently rearranging the matter of your life. The principle of resonance, which once kept you trapped, now becomes your greatest tool of creation. Remember, we do not attract what we want, we attract who we are. When your identity was governed by the imposter, you attracted dynamics that validated your fraud. Relationships where you needed to perform to be accepted. Friendships where your role was that of the Superman, always giving and never receiving. Bosses who mirrored your inner critic. It was a universe perfectly calibrated to your insecurity. Now, with your inner sovereignty established, your vibration has changed, and your universe begins to change with it. Your relationships are the first to feel the earthquake. The superficial friendships, based on the persona you have abandoned, start to feel strangely boring and empty. They fade away, not with drama, but with a silent indifference. The vacuum they leave is then filled by new connections, people attracted not by your performance, but by your authenticity. Conversations become deeper, vulnerability becomes the foundation of trust. You discover the joy of being valued for who you are, not for the role you play. Your career follows the same pattern. The fear of being found out disappears, and with it, the need to hide. You start sharing your true ideas in meetings. You volunteer for the projects that excite you, not just the ones that look safe or impressive. Your newfound courage may lead you to confront your current path and ask, was this career my choice or my imposter's? This question in itself can be the catalyst for a monumental shift, finally aligning your work with your soul. And then something that looks like magic begins to happen. Carl Jung called this synchronicity. As you align more and more with your true self, the universe seems to conspire in your favor. The right person appears at the right time. The opportunity you needed lands in your lap. The book with the answer you were looking for falls off the shelf. This is not magic, it is perception. With your mind no longer clouded by the imposter's noise, you become receptive to the opportunities that were always there, but that your old, fearful self was blind to. You start to see the patterns, to follow your intuition, to dance in harmony with the flow of life. When your relationships, your career, and your outer world begin to align with your inner peace, the great battle is won. The fraud has died, and the authentic self has taken the throne. But how do you ensure that this new king reigns forever? How do you transform this achievement into a way of being, a legacy, your ultimate and unshakable truth?
Sovereignty over your inner kingdom is not a final destination, but a new way of governing. The new king does not rule with tyranny, eradicating all opposition, but with a wise vigilance. The imposter, your former tyrant, is not annihilated. He is exiled to the distant provinces of your mind. His voice, once a roar in the center of your being, becomes a whisper on the fringes of your consciousness. You will still hear it from time to time, in moments of great stress or a bold new challenge. But your relationship with it has changed. You no longer mistake it for the truth. You recognize it as the echo of an old fear, an obsolete data pattern. You hear it, perhaps even with a hint of compassion, and then, consciously, you choose a different path. The way to ensure that this new king reigns forever is through the daily practice of authenticity. It is the constant application of a new compass. Before every important decision, you pause and ask, does this action come from my authentic self, aligned with my values? Or does it come from the desire to please, to avoid conflict, from the fear of being judged? The Great War gives way to a series of small, daily choices, and it is in these small choices that your new kingdom is strengthened. The ultimate act of solidifying your new self is to focus outwards. A person who is busy living their purpose has no time for the imposter's mind games. When your energy is focused on contributing your gifts, on creating, on serving, the paralyzing self-consciousness fades away. Your work, your relationships, your contribution become the living proof of your competence and your worth. You no longer need to believe you are worthy. Your actions demonstrate it. And finally, you reach the last and most subtle stage of integration: gratitude. You look back at the shadowy figure of the imposter that tormented you for so long, and you feel, to your surprise, not hatred, but a strange gratitude. He was the guardian of your deepest wound. By forcing you to fight him, he forced you to heal that wound. He was the dragon guarding your treasure. By facing him, you claimed the gold of your authenticity. He was your harshest, most relentless, and ultimately, most transformative teacher. You are not a fraud. You never were. You were simply a powerful soul, afraid of your own light. The journey was never about becoming someone new. It was about unlearning everything that was not you, so that the person who was always there, beneath all the layers of fear and conditioning, could finally emerge. And that is the only truth that matters. The journey inward is the longest and most rewarding. If this exploration of the soul resonated with you, please leave a like so this message can reach more people, and subscribe to continue the conversation. And if you have accompanied us to this final point, leave a comment with the words "Connection established." It is our signal that you are part of those who seek to understand. Thank you for your company. Until the next reflection.